So let's talk about designing for behaviour change. I understand that what we're talking about here in very layman's terms is the application of behavioural psychology to the design process. But what does it actually mean? Aren't all design efforts at their core trying to purposely affect the behaviour of the people that they're for?
Yes, I think so. I've used a metaphor in the past talking about designing for behavior change of a pair of sunglasses, where a behavioral designer is doing many of the same activities, maybe all the same activities of other sorts of designers, because there's no one behavioral design skill set. I've worked with behavioral designers who are primarily content designers, who are primarily interaction designers. But what we are doing is we're deliberately using frameworks and theories from behavioral science. So our process starts by identifying what we call target behaviors, the things that we want people to do differently as a result of interacting with the thing that we design. And our term for that would be an intervention. And then we seek to understand the barriers that people experience with respect to those target behaviors. What are the things that make it hard for people to do? What gets in the way? And as well as what makes it easier? Are there things in the environment or in their mental models about this behavior that make them more likely to take action? Because we want to capitalize on the things that work. And once we understand that, many behavior science frameworks will actually provide a solution set. So whatever you find in the research, there's typically some evidence base that says, okay, well, now try these sorts of solutions in order to get people to do that behavior. And so it's really following that process, going back to the literature to make sure that we're bringing in the evidence in the way we design. Or, one of the things that we also do find sometimes is there isn't always a strong evidence base. And that's where we do try to do our own primary research, where we work with user experience researchers to try to generate that evidence base ourselves, as well as I think we all know that the context that we're in really matters. So if I'm looking at research around a behavior of getting a colonoscopy or having a vaccination from, let's say, 5 years ago, that might be very different than now because we're in the middle of a global pandemic and that's really affecting the way people experience their healthcare. So sometimes there's also value in generating our own research just because of changing times, changing contexts, just knowing that people are different across different parts of their life. But generally, it's really going back and pulling in those established theories, frameworks, and evidence bases that I think distinguishes a behavioral designer from other sorts of designers.